Live.
I'd like to call to order the January 11th EOTC meeting, starting at 4:07. Mr. Petrellis, would you like to approach?
I thought it was second on the agenda.
Well, you would ask, I think you were trying
I
to...
wanted to, hello, I'm Michael Petrellis. I wanted to give you my business card where I'm posting calendars. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes on the call of the roll. Member Wolf.
Here, or present.
Wolf present. Pelpel absent. Highland present. We have a quorum. I do not have any agenda changes listed for today. Item number 2, file number 15095, complaint filed by Daniel Tomaskovic against Public Works for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.25 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner. Jurisdiction?
Yeah, just to make clear, this is part of our, I guess, function as the Complaints Committee. This has not been heard. We are going to hear this and then kind of give our opinion on where it should go from here. And I don't see any problems with jurisdiction. Can we take that without
Would
objection?
you like to make the motion?
Good.
Make a motion that we have jurisdiction?
Second?
Is there any public comment regarding the motion to find jurisdiction? There is none. The motion is adopted without objection, with Member Pelpel being absent. The complainant, you're allowed 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Tomaskovic. The San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency is making changes along the N. Judah streetcar line in the inner Sunset. Between 1st Avenue and 9th Avenue, they will delete 2 stops, shuffle 4 stops around, and add new, wider sidewalks at the new stops. Department of Public Works will design the new, wider sidewalks. September 2014, Department of Public Works held a presentation to show several possibilities for the new 4 stops and wider sidewalks. They asked for public feedback. April, at the second presentation, DPW said this is their final plan. No modifications will be allowed. There are problems with the plan, and I wanted to learn more about the decision-making process at DPW. May 8th, I sent through the U.S. Postal Service a immediate disclosure request to the DPW custodian of records, indicating a request for all files related to the Irving Street project. It was a immediate disclosure request. For 10 days, I did not hear any reply. May 18th, I wrote to Frank Lee, DPW, inquiring about the status of my IDR. He said they are collecting documents and told me the following day they will have something ready. May 22nd, I went to the DPW offices to download the files to a flash drive. A week later, DPW sent an email that more documents were collected and I can access them. I went to their offices on June 4th to copy the second set of files. DPW said with the June 4th visit they want to close the case, and I said that many documents are missing. I was reading all the documents, and it ends up that they sent 1,170 pages of files. June 8th, I sent a SOTF complaint against DPW. June 10th, Victor Young, SOTF, replied that they received my complaint and referred it to DPW to give them time to respond. By June 29th, I wrote to Victor Young, SOTF, asking why is there such a delay for DPW to respond when SOTF records say the defendant has 5 days to respond. Finally, on July 3rd, DPW responded, and their response was inadequate. So I'm saying I wish to complain that the manner in which DPW handled the IDR and all the duplication of documents is a little bit outrageous. They sent 1,170 pages of files with a tremendous amount of duplication. About 50 pages of those files are crosstalk. Which day should they have the meeting, which room, which time, who's taking a bus or car to the meeting. The novel War and Peace has 1,130 pages, but they outshined even War and Peace. So there is a violation. My request was to learn about the decision-making process. Why is Plan A better than Plan B, or Plan B better than Plan C? And they did not provide any of that information in their huge amount of documents. Also, if there was a need to withhold some documents, they never said that within a 10-day response time. And that's all I can say at this time.
Thank you. That was very detailed. Thank you.
Sorry if I rushed. I wanted to get into the 5 minutes.
No problems. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak on behalf of the complainant?
Thank you. My name is Mary Miles. I'm an attorney, environmental attorney. I am quite interested in the Irving Street project. It affects many travelers and visitors to that area. It's a heavily trafficked commercial area, and it's important for the public to be able to know what's going on there. I think that this complaint, the consequences of not providing and having an open information process on this project does affect the public's, not only the public's right to know, but the public's right to object if they so desire to any project like this on environmental bases. For example, CEQA requires informed decision-making, and that decision-making is often informed by public comment. Here, we can't have that. Perhaps it isn't ready yet, but in any event, that can't happen unless first the public is given the necessary access to materials. So that would conclude my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public on behalf of the complainant? Seeing none, is the respondent here?
Good evening, Jeremy Spitz with Public Works. We provided a detailed response, but I will summarize it. The detailed response should be in your packets. Essentially, our response is that we received Mr. Tomasevich's immediate disclosure request on May 12th. It wasn't immediately clear that it was an immediate disclosure request. We glanced over it, started looking for responsive documents, but we believed that it was just a regular public records request. When Mr. Tomasevich contacted us and reminded us of the immediacy of his request, we replied immediately and then provided the responsive documents that we had gathered so far the next day. And we have a detailed timeline in our detailed response, which should be in your packets as well. So we replied the next day, and we followed up a few days later with the remainder of the documents. We did not withhold any documents from the project file. As Mr. Tomasevich states, there was quite a number of documents in that file. There was not a written document that might have explained our decision-making process as well as Mr. Tomasevich might have liked, because that document didn't exist. Most of the decision-making process for this project, as I understand it, happened in in-person meetings where there were not detailed notes kept or documents created to reflect that process. We provided all of the documents that were associated with this project and did not withhold any documents. We held a meeting, in-person meeting with Mr. Tomasevich and the project manager at the site of the project on June 18th to discuss his concerns for the project. And we asked him if there was anything else that he would like us to provide to him, and we haven't heard anything back from him since then. And we haven't heard anything back from Mr. Tomasevich about what documents we can provide. As you know, the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force does not, or the Sunshine Ordinance does not require us to create any documents in response. So our department is not required to write up a document that shows our decision-making process for design decisions made for this project or any projects. Also, on his request, it was not immediately clear, according to the Sunshine Ordinance. The states that an immediate disclosure request shall apply only if the words immediate disclosure request are placed atop the top of the request or on the envelope, subject line, or cover sheet in which the request is transmitted. And again, that wasn't the case for this request. If we had known, we would have invoked a 14-day extension immediately because of the nature and breadth of this request. So to summarize, we're not withholding any documents. He has all the documents, and we are happy to work with him to locate any additional documents he believes exist. But we don't have the capacity to create new documents for him for things that don't exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz. Anybody here in support of the respondent? Seeing none, the case is before the commission. Mr. Clerk, just a quick question. We've had some lengthy discussions with DPW in the last 6 months. This incident looks like it took place in around June timeframe. That last case we have, was that before, during, after? Just trying to place it, because we've done a lot of work with DPW, both in this EOTC and the full task force. So I'm just trying to see whether these violations occurred after or before.
I can take a quick look at my files, and I'll see if I can provide a better answer.
See if you can pull that up as we discuss here. Thank you. Member Wolf, any thoughts?
Well, do we have a copy of the original request at all to identify how its IDR status was notated?
Good question. Mr. Tomasevich, could you approach, please? You can give that to the clerk, if you would. Thank you. And I'm assuming this is not in the package? I didn't see that.
I do not believe it.
Yeah, in future, if we can get these scanned in.
It was not submitted to me.
Okay. And again, that should be part of our guidelines that we're working on for members of the public to make sure they get the original IDRs into us. Take a quick look at this and give it to you, Member Wolf. Look the other. Boom. It's right there. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Just looking at it briefly, it's very clear in the first paragraph that this is an IDR. So, Mr. Spitz, I'm not sure where the confusion was in that. I grant you it is by snail mail, but even so, if we move back the calendar to the 12th when you received it, there should have been certain things that followed, given, even a few days later. And it seems pretty clear. I think both parties are acknowledging that didn't happen. And in terms of timeliness, so certainly 6725 would apply here. And I think probably 6721 too. 21 rather. Member Wolf, any other thoughts on that?
The only other thing that I want to ascertain is whether Mr. Tomasevich believes there's still other documents outstanding. I understand his concerns about the repetitive content in what was turned over to him. However, although that makes it difficult to navigate other people would want those different sources of information. I think that we have to err towards assuming that when all documents are requested, all documents are provided, even if they're repetitive in nature.
Mr. Tomasevich, if you could approach, please. So at this point, given the voluminous amount of material you've received, do you feel there's other information that you're still missing? And keep in mind, what they're required to provide to you is just what you asked for, rather than coming up with reports or analyses of why A over B over C.
I do not know which documents are available or exist. It's up to them to provide that to me. When I picked up the second set of files on June 4th, I received an email from Mr. Spitz saying that they would like to close the case since all the evidence is provided. However, on June 10th, Mr. Spitz sent another email saying they have another 400 pages. So what's the purpose of saying they want to close the case when 2 days later they find another 400 pages? And also, what's the purpose of keeping me busy reading such voluminous material if it's on a repetitive basis? So if they say there is none, then we have to trust them, even though I'm a little bit suspicious how there's nothing staying of why, when projects are involved and money is concerned, that they have no record of why one option is better than another, why there are shortfalls or shortcomings in one project versus another.
Another follow-up question for you. I think you mentioned that they did post public meeting times regarding these changes.
They only announced their version of the plan, which is final, no modifications permitted. So it was forced upon the neighborhood. Their plans were forced upon us, and we could not have any recourse to talk about adjustments, modifications. They didn't want to entertain the opportunity of going back and forth because they were in some hurry, I don't know what, to finalize the project.
So there was not a series of meetings, posted discussion, changes?
There was one meeting, one public presentation in September in Golden Gate Park, where they had boards and they showed various options that are possibilities for the various locations. There was a public feedback process. They had online surveys, and in April, at the second presentation, this is the plan for this stop, for this stop, for this stop, and take it or leave it. There's no adjustments can be done.
So you said there were two meetings. Is that what I'm hearing?
There were presentations. There weren't meetings going back and forth.
I see. Okay, there's
Yes.
no discussion. They were just...
Yes, two, and on the second, that's the final word. No adjustments. What they liked in April has to be the final plan.
So that first meeting had no public comment opportunity?
After the first meeting, since there were several options for the different stops, they had plan A, plan B, plan C. Mm-hmm. There was a survey. People could submit their responses on an online survey. They gathered information and then said they will announce the results in November, which they did. And from then on, December, they were quiet. January, February, March, they were quiet. No interaction, going back and forth where they are in the process. In April, at the presentation, this is the plan, and we're done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Spitz, if you could approach, please. I'm kind of concerned that there's no... So, Mr. Spitz, I'm a little bit concerned about what we're hearing here. It sounds like there was a public meeting by definition, mm-hmm. and at that public meeting, it sounds like there was not comment for, opportunity for public comment. Can you confirm that? And give me the dates of the two meetings that we're dealing with here.
I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in this project, but I know that the materials from the meetings were provided to Mr. Tomasevich. I believe that the first meeting was to gain public comment, and this is just from what I've read. I wasn't involved in this. Okay, project.
I guess what I'm trying to get down to the bottom of, at that first meeting, mm-hmm. where did it take place? Was it a public meeting or was this an online meeting? It sounds like it was a public meeting where the department said, here's what we're thinking, here are the options, thank you very much, goodbye. That's what it sounds like.
No,
up to us.
at that meeting, there was public comment
There was.
received. Yes.
Okay, all right. So there was an opportunity for public comment at the initial meeting.
Right, and that's where there was a poll distributed or an online poll.
That followed that meeting. Okay,
Right.
and then the second meeting basically was a meeting to announce DPW's decision. And was there public comment allowed at that meeting?
I am not sure. I can follow up with the project manager and ask and get back to you, but I'm not involved with the
Okay.
project specifically.
All right. Thank you.
And I can, through the chair,
Yeah.
a follow-up question for Mr. Spitz, is it? Can you state, just for the record, whether or not there are any additional documents that may relate to the requester's request?
As of the requester's as of June, there are no additional documents. We haven't looked since then because we have received no additional requests.
Great. Thank you.
And just one quick question. Has this project happened yet? Is it in process?
I am not sure. Again, it's not happened yet. I'm not sure at what
Okay.
stage in the process it is. I believe it might be out for bid.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I'm just a little bit worried that this whole process started back in June of last year, and here we are in January of the next year finally hearing this when it may not, make a difference if this is already sort of in the works, no pun intended. And I might ask the clerk about that, just the timing. Was that just a
Mr.
backlog issue?
Tomasiewicz was not available for hearing, and he requested several continuances
I see.
over the last few months.
Okay. All right. Would you like to provide a wrap-up? I guess respondent goes first.
This is the rebuttal period. You have
Rebuttal,
about 3
yeah.
minutes to provide a rebuttal.
I have 3 minutes? Oh. I would just like to say that, Frankly, who is our custodian of records, received the initial request. I'm not sure why he made the oversight about the immediate disclosure request, but it was an oversight. It was not made out of any malicious intent, and for that we do apologize. It was simply an oversight, and had we noticed that it was an immediate disclosure request, we would have invoked a 14-day extension immediately due to the voluminous nature of these records. I believe that the Sunshine Ordinance the Sunshine Ordinance defines an immediate disclosure request as something that is simple, routine, or otherwise readily available, and this request certainly was not. So, had we invoked that 14-day request, 14-day extension immediately, as we should have, then, basically, we should have invoked that 14-day extension, and I apologize that we didn't. And after Mr. Tomasiewicz followed up with us, we made every effort to accommodate his request, setting up a public meeting setting up a meeting with him and the project manager to discuss his concerns about the project. And we've provided all of the documents, and there are no documents that have been withheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tomasiewicz, you have 3 minutes to rebut and conclude.
I just want to reiterate, after I picked up the second set of documents on June 4th, Mr. Spitz said that the case is closed. However, on June 10th, he sent me another 400 pages of documents which are crosstalk and emails. So I sent on June 10th, on June 8th, I sent a SOTF complaint. June 10th, Victor Young received, and referred it to DPW to give them time to respond. From June 10th to July 3rd, DPW did not respond, whereas the records of the SOTF policy says they have 5 days. I'm puzzled why DPW gets a free ride blank card to do anything they want, have delays after delays, finding apologies after where they can't justify their actions of delaying as postponing as far away the date to submit items to me. And I hope that's about all I want to say. So it's been a one hazard after another, delay, postponements, and no recourse has been taken against DPW for their ineptabilities regarding a submission of documents that I requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Discussion?
I mean, I think that the IDR, the failure to follow the IDR and the failure to request a waiver are both things that we should recommend finding a violation for, and everything else seems to be of, I don't find an identifiable violation otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. So I think 6, 7, 21, and 25 is probably what we're talking about here. It seems like both parties are in agreement on that. Just a quick question for Mr. Spitz, if you would approach one more time. I'm trying to place this in terms of the calendar of events. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions with you and with Mr. Lee. Mm-hmm. Was this happening about the same time? We think so, or I think so. I don't know if Mr. Clerk has had a chance to pull up the last cases.
I believe we...
I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember. I think I don't know if it overlapped with Grisham at all.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get down to is, here's my first question. Who is the custodian of records, DPW?
Frank. I work for Frank.
Okay.
I handled this request primarily.
Okay.
Once Frank kind of handled it.
Okay. I wish I could bring someone else up and chastise them, but all roads lead to Frank. And here we are again with Frank not handling an IDR correctly. I don't know exactly whether this happened. Let's say this happened all about the same time as the other case, which Mr. Tomasevich doesn't know, but I think it's about the same time. We've logged a lot of hours with DPW about their processes, about responding to IDRs, et cetera, et cetera. We hope that has improved. And, this took place middle of last year, which is when we were working with them on their whole process. I'd like to say that if you filed an IDR this month, it would go much more smoothly. And we have seen some evidence both at the full commission and at this EOTC about those processes being put in place. I'm sorry it took so long for your case to get before us. It would have probably been more timely had it come up while we were dealing with the other case. We'd heard it all together. You'd have got the full richness of the debate and what the problems were and the challenges and whatnot. But this, I think, locks in step very closely with what we've already discussed with this department. I think based on that, we're probably going to recommend to the full task force to find violations of those two areas, both timeliness and material. And I think I'd like to add to not refer it past that point would probably be my recommendation. Member Wolf?
I'm sorry, what was the last 5 words you said?
Just to refer it to full task force to find the violations, and then I guess it would be the call of the chair, actually, Chair Washburn, as to whether she would then like to refer it to EOTC or compliance and amendments. I don't think it requires that because I think it's pretty much, work that we've done with DPW already, but that would be my recommendation.
I didn't know that the instructions around where to refer it.
It's really not. Yeah, it's not really.
So I would. Have you already made a motion?
Let me rephrase the motion. Violations of 67, 21, and 25. Period.
I second that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spitz. Could we have some public comment on that motion?
Jeez.
You already spoke in support.
Unfortunately, you already spoke in support of the complainant, so no worries. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, public comments closed.
On the motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Pilpil. Pilpil absent. Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. The motion passes. This matter will be referred to the next available Sunshine Ordinance Task Force meeting with recommendation to find violations 67.21 and 67.25. The complainants will be notified of the meeting date. You are invited but not required to attend that meeting.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is item number 3, file number 15163, complaint filed by Michael Petrellis against Steve Kawa and the Mayor's Office for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.21 by failing to completely comply with the request for the calendar of Steve Kawa.
Jurisdiction?
Member Highland made a motion to find jurisdiction, seconded by Member Wolf. Is there any public comment regarding jurisdiction? There is none at this time. On the motion to find jurisdiction, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Pill absent. Chair Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. The motion passes. Mr. Petrellis?
Hello, Michael Petrellis. I filed a request for a calendar of Steve Kawa, who I refer to as the Vice Mayor, but I see here his official title is Chief of Staff. And the reply that came from Kirsten, who's sitting here, she handles the Mayor's sunshine requests. And we've been dealing with each other a number of years now, and it usually goes very well in terms of production of documents. And in this case, there were documents provided to me, but as you can see later on in the packet, the calendar that was provided to me is totally blank. In Kirsten's response on behalf of the Mayor, it's explained that the staff apparently has some exemption in terms of retaining records beyond 2 weeks. I found this absolutely shocking because I've been coming here to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force for years about records, and there's never been a question before of records being destroyed regularly every 2 weeks. So I have to sidetrack for a moment and just say that since I learned this information, I am filing a request for Kawa's emails and calendar every 2 weeks. If they're going to be destroying it every 2 weeks, I got to get my request in every 2 weeks. To wrap up here on page 50 of the brochure of the package here, it's the response from Jerry Threet of the district of the city attorney's office, and he raises some really good questions about is there a physical copy printed? If not, could Kawa reconstruct his meeting schedule? If not, who handles his test? In short, I'm saying these are really terrific questions from the city attorney, and I look forward to hearing from the mayor's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petrellis. Is there anyone, members of the public, here to talk on behalf of the complainant? Seeing none, would the respondent please approach?
May I move this? Hi, I'm Kirsten McCauley from the Mayor's Communications Office. Nice to see you guys again. So, as you guys know, Mr. Petrellis filed he requested documents from our office for electronic copy of your Chief of Staff, Steve Kawa's calendar for the period of July, August, and September of 2015. This was in December 9th that we received his request. And when I forwarded the request to the appropriate staff to review for records, they responded with the appropriate records. We had provided that to Mr. Petrellis in a timely manner and before the 10 days. And then, so in that respect, we did not violate Section 67.21. When he responded if there were any additional documents, I had responded no, there were no additional documents beyond what we have already provided.
Could you perhaps address what Mr. Petrellis was talking about, the 2-week clause?
That for each particular staff member, that would go under their practices, but no, it's not. We have a record retention policy that reflects the city attorney's advice and the city attorney's approval. We worked with them on that several years ago, and we fully comply with our policy, with the Sunshine Sunshine Ordinance, Public Records Act.
You don't by chance have a copy of that documentation, do you?
The records retention policy? No, but my office is
Okay.
just downstairs.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Is anybody here to speak on behalf of the respondent? Seeing nobody, this is before the commission. Member Wolf, like to lead us off again?
I mean, I find it highly disturbing that there are records of calendars that are being erased on a regular basis. I'm curious what the full records retention policy of the mayor's office looks like. I think that their argument that it isn't a violation for providing records that don't exist is probably true, but there does seem to be a likely violation of failure to, sorry, I don't see it right in front of me, but 6729.7 of maintaining records, but without a deeper insight into the records retention policies and the city policy, I'm not entirely sure how best to go about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there certainly seems to be an issue here as to who is covered and who is not covered. And also with the new, I guess, legislation that was it John Avalos just put forward. I'm just wondering how, if that covers this or not. Yeah, please do.
Steve is not a department head, so the mayor is the only one that is required to keep these calendar entries.
And I think that's where we're splitting hairs at this point. I think the discussion is probably going to revolve around that. This might be something worth sending up to the full task force for them to have a better look at it and prepare a little bit more, because it's certainly, raising question marks in my mind.
So, to the respondent, can you speak to the process that Mr. Kalwa goes through to keep his calendar in the order that he does keep it in?
No, but his assistant is here for likely questions like this, so can we bring him up?
Sure.
Good afternoon, Carl Nacito with the Mayor's Office. As Christian said, I'm Steve Cava's assistant, so I do maintain his calendar. In terms of maintaining it, we use Outlook, and it's like any other calendar with entries per hour, half an hour. But the calendar is created simply for Steve's convenience, and we maintain it as such. We maintain it for 2 weeks to have a retrospective look at it for convenience in scheduling follow-up meetings. And in my experience as Steve's assistant, 2 weeks is adequate time, and I've never had to look beyond those 2 weeks.
And in order to erase past meetings, is that a feature built into the software? Is that done manually? Is that the default of the software? How is that happening?
No, it's not the default of the software, so it would be done manually. But I think it's important to note that it is within our records retention policy. There is no requirement to keep it at all. And like I said, 2 weeks, we're able to look back retrospectively for convenience.
So there were three options with that question, and it sounds like you don't have a macro set up to automatically erase 2 weeks. You're actually going through every day and erasing everything from 2 weeks before?
It's not so strict, but in general, it's kept for 2 weeks.
And then it's manually deleted entry by entry?
Yes.
Great.
I'm sorry, I find that very hard to believe. I have 10,000 Gmails sitting in my Gmail account. I don't go back every 2 weeks and delete it, nor would I on a calendar. Maybe 15 years ago when size and space was an issue, maybe, but these days those are not issues. Mm-hmm. And really, the discussion of whether they keep it 2 weeks or not is somewhat moot. The real discussion is whether it's something that's sunshineable. I think that's the first.
I don't think it's moot at all. But this I'm not sure how relevant is. But what is the imperative for deleting them? It sounds like you're using staff time to remove records that did exist. And by 2 weeks, he has no reason to go back in it, as you kind of indicated. So what is the purpose of this house cleaning?
For convenience, I'd reiterate that this has been the regular practice. Our records retention policy has been approved by the city attorney, the controller's office, and has been in place.
I've heard that, and that's been registered, and I'm happy to sort of take that through its process to figure out. But
Yeah.
I don't understand. It's obviously not convenient for you to go through every day and erase old calendar entries. I don't understand how it's more convenient for him to not see entries that he's not going to see in the first place. So how does the convenience work there?
I think just general housekeeping. I mean, in accordance with our records retention policy, we are able to keep things at our convenience for a period of time for its immediate use. That's our records retention policy. That's been our practice, and that's how I maintain Steve's calendar for our immediate use. And in my experience, 2 weeks has been enough time to look back at that retrospectively in order to schedule follow-up meetings.
Great. Thanks.
So let me ask you one more time. How consistently do you delete those records?
Consistently.
Okay. It just seems to me that it takes time to delete them, whereas they could just sit there, and that would take less time and be more efficient use of city resources. Anyway, that aside, I think this. I'd like this to go to the full task force.
I think we're ready to hear their closing, their rebuttals, and then
just to give you an idea
wrap this up.
And I think at the next meeting where we see it before the full task force, I'd like you guys to bring your records retention policy, send it to Mr. Young in advance, because I think there might be some issues here, whether that needs to be revised or at least discussed, because it doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that it really needs to be part of the packet as opposed to just brought to the meeting that this is hearing, so that it can be fully reviewed ahead of time.
Yeah.
I know that we have sent the records, the same exact records retention policy to you guys before, but I'm happy to send it immediately when I leave here or go get it.
Yeah, that'd be
Print
good.
out a hard copy for you right now.
Yeah. Well, again, I think this is something probably the full task force would like to digest and read. And so if you could send that to Mr. Young, who'll send it to us. But go ahead and take 3 minutes to rebut, if you like. If you want to go ahead and wrap up.
Again, we complied with the request, and so we do not find there has been no violation of 67.21, which we were brought here for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Petrellis?
Wait, can I ask a question to the chair before?
Sure.
My understanding is that the complainant is just citing that there's been a possible violation. The actual numbers of the violation is all in our purview. So whether it's a 6721 isn't really particularly.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Young about this, but I think I'll ask that question once Mr. Petrellis has rebutted and make more sense at that point. Go ahead.
My understanding is that records are created and then they're destroyed. So I'm in I don't know if it's a catch-22 or a Kafka-esque scenario here, but I'm requesting something that was created but then destroyed. And I'm wondering, well, why keep it just 2 weeks? Why not bring it down just to 2 days? That would be a lot more convenient. The other side has talked about convenience for them. Well, why is it convenient? Why is that the overriding issue here? I am really disturbed that I cannot ask for a record. Let's say Steve Kawa met with Tony Fauci from the National AIDS Institute, and they're discussing the cure for AIDS. Well, I'd like to know they had a meeting 2 months ago about that. Whatever he's having meetings about as the chief of staff, and we know that he's keeping a record, it should be made available to the public. My question that I'd like for you to ask when we get to the full task force, and of course the folks are here, I want this answered. Where is the memorializing documentation from the city attorney? The mayor's office is saying they've had advice from the city attorney. Well, let's see it first of all. And who all of a sudden gave the city attorney to make this carve out of 2 weeks? And these folks have shown up without anything in writing for us. I'm getting really, really suspicious that they have not memorialized their process. They have not memorialized whatever advice they've been given by the city attorney. And I'm not going to buy it that the city attorney gave them the go-ahead to destroy it. And I'm wondering what else is being destroyed. What other public records could they be destroying every 2 weeks that we don't know about?
Thank you. So, Mr. Clerk, my question was, and to answer Member Wolf's question, we could recommend that this full task force with X, Y, and Z violations, and then at the full task force we could change those. Could we also recommend it de novo in front of the task force with certain recommendations of materials we'd like to see present, people we'd like to see present, to have a full and rich discussion?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
That wasn't my question actually
okay.
at all.
All right. I failed to anticipate your question.
I don't know whether it's actually important though, but essentially the mayor's office is defending against a particular segment of the Sunshine Ordinance, and my understanding is that basically we have carte blanche to identify any violation, and that while their argument against 6721 may have validity, if there's some other element that they're violating, it doesn't really come into play. Is that... I don't know whether anyone can answer it, or...
I based it on a description of the complaint provided to the office. It was my opinion it was a 67.21. If there's additional violations, the complainant could tell me which code section themselves and so forth. But to the best of my ability, I believe it was 67.2.
So the complainant does need to identify which code violations we are, and then we are bounded by those? That's the question.
No,
we're not.
Okay,
We
great.
can always
Thanks.
add to or change those sections. Did you want to add something?
Oh, I believe Michael Petrellis.
Can you speak in the microphone, please? Thanks.
I just wanted to say, I believe you were the one that responded and said we were in violation of 67.21 before Victor.
Yeah, we have 6721 and 6725, which are being considered and probably will be considered again by the full task force. I think my inclination is just to have this de novo before the task force with requests for certain persons and materials be sent ahead of time in the package. I think this is something that I know there's a whole case out there regarding email and text and whatnot and that's still ongoing and perhaps connected to this, but and it might just end up we defer to that, which is still ongoing. I don't know. That's happened in past cases as well. That might be where this is going to end up. But I think, again, it's certainly interesting enough that I think a full discussion is merited.
I'm inclined to agree with you, although I think that these are significantly different from the email issue. My primary reason for wanting to defer this to the full task force is that I would like to hear our city attorney's perspective on this argument, and also to have the time to review the mayor's records retention policy in order to actually make an informed decision. The one thing in terms of referring it to the full task force, if there are potential violations identified, I think we should also add 6729-7.
Okay. So, Victor, how about this? If we can recommend this to the task force for de novo discussion, note in it that we discussed 21, 25, and 29. And
29.7 in particular.
29.7 in particular. And that we are requesting the mayor's office's records retention policy in advance to you to be part of the package. If the two of you could be present at that would be very, very helpful. Anything else?
No, that all sounds great to me.
If Mr. Wolf would like to have any questions for the city attorney or Mr. Treat, if you can send those to me and I can forward it to DCA Treat on your behalf.
Well, I think what we can maybe just state is we'd like to have the previous city attorney's advice to this department.
City attorney's advice regarding the retention policy.
Yeah, it's something in writing. I mean, we like, if it exists.
The city attorney's advice to the mayor's office is probably protected under.
Well, doesn't hurt. We can ask. We can still ask for it.
Sure.
We can still ask for it. Kristen said that she's provided that to us in the past, and that our DCA, not that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We provided the policy to
The
you
policy,
guys.
but not the city attorney's advice on the policy.
No.
Okay. Well, we're going to request it.
We can, yeah. I'll
We'll
work
request it,
with-
and we'll see what their response is. And if they do respond, our DCA should be prepared to talk to that as well.
Is it within the purview of our DCA's job to give a legal analysis of the mayor's retention policy in regards to?
That might be tricky. I mean, there's a ethical line there, and I'll leave it up to Jerry 3 to decide how and if he can respond to that. I think that's probably the best way to.
Sounds good.
Okay. Did it all make sense?
Yes, the motion made by Member Highland, seconded by Member Wolf, is to refer this matter to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force for a de novo hearing regarding the matter. The issues to be brought up is Sunshine Ordinance Code Section 67.21, 67.25, and 67.29-7. We are requesting the mayor's office to provide a copy of the retention policy, along with any city attorney advice regarding the approval of that retention policy.
Any city attorney advice on that policy?
On that policy, yes.
Okay.
And the February meeting of the full task force is already full. So I believe the earliest I can reschedule this would be in March, depending on Chair Washburn's approval.
Okay.
I will notify both parties, but I believe it will be the first Wednesday in March.
Okay. All right. And can we get some public comment on that motion? Seeing none, we can take a roll call.
On that motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Pilpil, absent. Chair Highland.
Aye.
Highland, aye. The motion passes. I will send notice to both parties once we do reschedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prellis. Thank you, members of the Mayor's Office.
Next on the agenda is item number 4, file number 15166, complaint filed by Michael Trellis against the San Francisco Police Department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.21 for failure to respond to a request for public records submitted via Twitter in a timely and/or complete manner.
The Michael Petrellis Show continues. Jurisdiction?
Hello again, Michael Petrellis.
Hold on one second. They just determined jurisdiction. I led you on there. That was my fault. Motion for jurisdiction?
So moved.
Any member of the public or no members of the public in this room? The motion to find jurisdiction passes without objection, with Member Pilpil being absent.
Okay, Mr. Petrellis.
Hello. This complaint has to do with a clear definition of email. I'm looking at section 67.21. It's on page 86 of the reply from Jerry Threet. And it says, such request may be delivered to the office of the custodian by the requester orally or in writing by fax, postal delivery, or email. Now, I believe this ordinance was written before we had Twitter, Facebook, many other methods of electronic email. I do not believe email, as spelled out here in the section, is limited to just an email that you have like at America Online or another place for your Addy. I believe that electronic mail includes Twitter requests, especially because it's in writing. I submitted a written tweet to the PD profile, I believe it is, saying I want certain documents. And they said that they were not going to confirm, first of all, receiving the tweet, I believe, and that they were under no obligation to start processing a tweeted request. I believe that the bottom line here is a written request has been made to an official Twitter account maintained by the police department, and that means the clock started ticking on producing the documents that I want, and they owe me documents.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on behalf of the complainant? Seeing none, if the respondent could please approach.
Good afternoon.
And you are?
I was about to ask if you need an introduction.
Sure.
Sergeant Michael Andrzejczyk of the SFPD Media Relations Unit.
Good afternoon. You have 5 minutes to describe your side of the case.
Thank you. As I understand the questions presented today from the information that was presented to me, does the SFPD have records responsive to the requests that were not produced? And further, does Section 6721 require that SFPD accept public records via tweet? And did SFPD violate Section 6721 by not producing all records responsive to the complainant's tweeted request? It is the standpoint and the opinion of the police department that Twitter does not qualify for an email status. Twitter is social media. It is not email by definition. Email is quite clear, as the complainant stated. Email is an electronic mail system. Twitter is a social media application. We do not consider Twitter to be part of our public records process. For various reasons, our Twitter accounts are not monitored 24 hours a day or 7 days a week. We use those accounts to push out information to the public of department-related events. Twitter is limited to 120 or so characters. If you go through some of the messages that the complainant provided, you'll see that he uses his own form of shorthand and abbreviations. I don't think that's conducive to clear or effective communication. We take our sunshine and public record requests seriously, and we try to get them out as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible. I don't think Twitter and this 120 character limit and shorthand is conducive to that process either. There is a process in place for facilitating these requests. The Media Relations Unit in particular, the department in general, we strive to be open and provide respondents with the information that they've requested. There is a custodian of records as allowed by city ordinance, and there is a centralized process for receiving those complaints. The media submit their requests through the Media Relations Unit, and the general public are asked to submit those through the legal division. We wouldn't want someone walking up to an officer on the street involved in arrest or a scuffle or a traffic stop and drop a public record request on that officer. Those officers are busy doing other things, tending to public safety, and the concern here is that these requests that might be coming through Twitter will get lost. They won't be responded to in a timely fashion, and the public won't get the information that they want and that they're entitled to in a timely fashion. The second issue at hand is whether or not Officer Manfredi responded. We contest that he did. He attempted to advise the complainant of the proper process for submitting his request. I saw in the information provided by the complainant there was one tweet that was not included in the package I received from the task force. And in that response, the complainant states, let me find it here, no need on Officer Manfredi, and he lists a few other people. Officer Manfredi interpreted that to mean that the complainant no longer wished to proceed with that request and that he was going to use the other methods that were listed. With respect to a document, there is no document that lists the name of the person who's behind the SFPD Twitter account. Would also like to add that we have a great working relationship with the members of the news media. That's who we deal with on a consistent basis. We accept and process their sunshine requests, but we have such a good relationship that oftentimes they don't bother to file a former Sunshine or public record request. They call us and we get them what they want, or to the best of our abilities and as quickly as possible. And that's what we strive for within the Media Relations Unit, so there is no ill will intended towards the complainant. We just believe that Twitter does not meet the definitions of email. Twitter is a social media application. It is not an email. And I rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who would like to talk on behalf of the respondent? Please note there's no members of the public in the room at this time. This is before the commission. Member Pilbel?
Yes, and I apologize greatly that I was detained for an hour. I was waiting to speak at the hearing on the Super Bowl activities and its impact. And I'm sorry, the representative from the police department is?
Michael Andrzejczyk.
Ah, okay. I see you quoted in the paper regularly.
Yes. I don't see me on TV very much.
I don't watch TV these days. Look at me. Can you join us for a second? I just had a question about your response, which appears to be undated, and I was trying to follow the attachments, but they seemed a bit jumbled. Do you happen to have with you another copy of your response to the task force, and can you tell me if when it was prepared?
Officer Manfredi responded to an email request from Mr. Young and submitted that. I don't have the date listed as to when that was submitted. I believe there was an email thread.
Yeah.
Perhaps the clerk is able to assist us.
It looks like it could have been
identifying.
December 15th. I just wanted to find out. Maybe you can confirm that and
It's
check
been
in the
a few
future.
weeks.
Perhaps you might want to have a process where whoever prepares the thing, someone else's eyes, look at it before it goes out, because I'm always looking for a date.
So you just want a date listed on the document, is that correct?
Yeah, but
Okay.
also just in general to review. I get your response and assertion that Twitter is a social media device that I'm admittedly not a user of, but is not one of the specific channels under 67.21b by which public records requests may be submitted. However, can you just tell me very simply why the officer didn't simply respond to Mr. Petralis and just say, I'm Officer, I guess, Manfredi, I maintain this account. If you have further public records requests, here's the way to do that? Would that just have shortcutted this entire thing?
The officer did respond, and he did provide the proper information on how to file the public record request.
Right, but I was asking why he didn't or couldn't simply say, I'm Officer Manfredi, I maintain this account by myself, or I do it with others. If you have further public records requests, here's a process to go through, to just sort of answer the instant thing and say in the future, here's the process.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Officer Manfredi is the person behind the account. His photograph is on his profile. His name is listed on the account. I believe the request was who was behind the department's official Twitter handle. That's at least what I understand the request to be.
Right. That was my understanding. I don't understand the technology, so I would gather that Officer Manfredi maintains his own account. Mm-hmm. Officer Albee is probably himself. You might have your own. I think the question was the SFPD account, who is responsible for that, and that's not particularly obvious from the name, and I'm just wondering why that couldn't have just been answered with further reference to the policy for other requests.
I'll take that feedback with me to the office. I think there's a concern about establishing precedents with using Twitter and accepting Twitter as quote-unquote email when we contend that it is not. And that's a big concern for us. We don't want to get into the situation where people are tweeting sunshine requests in the middle of the night or on the weekend when an account is not monitored for 24/7, and it's possibly going to go unchecked, and it's possibly going to raise a complaint or a sustained complaint.
So then can you just explain to me so that I can understand how it's used? If you publish, or whatever the word is, some announcement from the department, if someone wants to respond back saying, I see a guy running away, or have you thought about blah, or just some response to that? Can they post that, and is that sort of a message received? How does that? I really don't know how the thing works.
I'm not a big user of Twitter myself, but you can respond to a tweet, which is a posting. But again, those are not monitored, and it's not intended to be something where there's a two-way dialogue necessarily, or people give information on a crime. There are clear-cut channels for that. It's public safety in mind. We want those channels to be something where there's someone who's going to be able to receive those complaints or those requests or that information in a timely fashion. And we don't want to establish this Twitter as something where people rely upon for that. And there are certainly timelines that are required under the Sunshine Ordinance.
Member Wolf, you had a few questions?
Yeah, and then I'll...
I've heard a few different things around who's actually responsible for the @SFPD account. It sounded like you had said that there are no documents responsive to that request at one point. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of any document that lists the name of the persons who respond or handle the Twitter account. I know who the persons are. That's certainly... I could tell you that right now.
Okay, let's start with that. Who are the people that participate on the @SFPD Twitter account?
Officer Wilson Ng and Director of Community Engagement, drawing a blank now, David Stevenson.
And are any of those the custodian of records?
I would be the custodian of records for.
Okay.
So the request that was sent through Twitter by Mr. Petrolis has now just been answered by you a second ago. Is that?
I don't know. Possibly.
Sounds like it.
Can I bring
Absolutely.
Mr. Petrolis in for a second, and then I'll come back to you?
Sure.
You can leave it. Don't worry, I should file a request for his documents.
I'm going to see you on that.
The answer is yes. I remember a reply from @SFPD.
No, Mr. Petrolis. The question is, you had originally asked who's responsible for @SFPD, and the custodian of records it said who uses that Twitter account. So
yes, I do believe I asked for that information via Twitter, but I have also filed a public records request explaining who exactly has an official SFPD account. There are dozens of them. They've invoked an extension because they don't have this information.
Okay, so you filed that through the email channel. So the question of who touches the
@SFPD. But I have to point out that they want to use their Twitter account to talk at us, but then we can't respond in writing to them. They're putting out information that to apprehend people. They're putting out mugshots, but then they're just too busy to accept a request. This is about expanding access to public documents.
I understand where you're coming from.
Whether it's fax machines, government officials have said we can't accept requests via fax. We can't because they have to come by snail mail. Then they needed a signature. Every new method of communication has to be used for these requests. Their resistance is not okay when they are using Twitter very well to put their propaganda out.
Thank you. You'll have your opportunity to reframe that in the rebuttal. I actually don't have any more questions for the officer at this point. Let
me just interject. I think there's a couple of issues here just to kind of get us back on point and not belabor this. Is Twitter, or even like, SFPD might have a Facebook page. You could post on that. It may not get answered. Yeah. There you go. It's right there. So it's on the bottom of their statement. So I think the integral question is what constitutes a bona fide communication which the custodian of records must respond to? Good question. Is Twitter there yet? I don't think so. Looking at what I see here, the title of all your tweets is "Where is El Nino?" How would I, as a custodian of records, look at that and realize that within all the acronyms, is buried a request for information? That's a bit of a stretch to me. And again, I'm not a Twitter user, and that may present some bias of what I consider Twitter to be, but I think until the language is updated to include Twitter, Facebook, and whatever else is down the road. I think just barely on the letter of the law. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, that the SFPD is probably within their rights to redirect you to the correct channels. That's just my instinct here. Member Pilpel, and keep it brief, please.
Yeah, I agree with that summary. Can you just refer to page 99 of our packet, the second page of the letter from the police?
Is that for Mr.
No, it's for you,
me?
Mr.
I don't know that I have mine numbered in such fashion. So
I think it's going to be handed to you in a second.
All right, thank you.
What page is it for us?
Page 99 of the packet, the second page of the PD.
Ours is 1 through 24. 99 is what's printed on that. What page is it in the package? This is the Police Department Medical Relations Unit, Media Relations Unit statement. Okay. You don't have the electronic.
No.
No wonder you don't do Twitter. I'm just kidding.
I don't have email.
Yes, you do. For the record. Anyway,
Don't.
carry on.
Okay, so the second paragraph where you say SFPD uses Twitter accounts, et cetera, that was very helpful to me to understand your intended use. Can you tell me if that's documented anywhere, somewhere? On Twitter, on a website, somewhere that explains the department's use of Twitter?
I don't know that it's expressed in those words. We have several disclaimers on our social media. I have an example of the verbiage somewhere in my packet that states that it's not monitored 24/7 and so forth.
It's not that part. It's to provide real-time updates and as a method of pushing out information to the public, not used or something like not used for other purposes. I think a summary, that statement or a version of that on the website, on whatever page, would help, because then it would both explain the intended purpose and disclaim any other intended purpose.
If I may,
So I would encourage you to consider that.
may I respond?
Sure. And then
Okay,
I'll-
let me know when you're ready. I don't want to start to interrupt your train of thought.
And then you've got a reference here to sanfranciscopolice.org/policy. I don't know what that website goes to, but I'm also looking at what I guess was the attachment. And perhaps if you could just arrange for the officer to resend the whole attachment so that I could follow it, that would help. The public records request page that I believe was part of the attachment.
Okay.
Looks like page 4354.
I'll work with the secretary to get that to you.
But in any event, this public records request page, if you could arrange to have this updated to bump it up in font size, because it's kind of hard to read. And some of the references here are still to the Hall of Justice, some are to your new headquarters, some of the phone numbers seem wrong. If you could have the appropriate staff check this to be sure that it's absolutely right, because I think one of the issues that came up in this complaint is what are the right channels and the right ways to get things to you. And if the information that you have out there is out of date, that's no good.
Absolutely.
So I would encourage you to do that and maybe follow up with a communication back to the task force from, is Lieutenant Woon still in legal?
Yes, he is.
Okay, either from him, Ms. Benuelos, somebody over there indicating that you've checked all of that and fixed those things. That would, I would appreciate that. But other than that, I agree with the chair that I'm not seeing a violation here. I think it would have been nice to just answer the question as you did today. And I can see just sort of answering that and saying for further things, go to that. And I don't think that sets a precedent. I think it just sort of takes care of Mr. Petrellis for that particular moment. It's not like he's going away.
I will definitely bring that back to the office. May I respond to your earlier point?
Go ahead.
What I do know about Twitter is there is a computer internet page where you start your account, and it's like a home page, if you will. It has very limited number of characters for your biography, a short little message. Just like when you send a tweet, you're limited to about 120 characters. And what we've been able to place in there is a very, very short statement about if you have an emergency, call 911, that this Twitter is not monitored 24/7. There's not a whole lot of space to add verbiage on that Twitter landing page, if you will, or that Twitter homepage. But I can ask my techie folks if there's any way that we could switch around the verbiage and make that a little more clear.
Or maybe just put, instead of sanfranciscopolice.org/policy, if that's the bit, maybe if you could change that to sanfranciscopolice.org/Twitter, and maybe on the web page have a page that discusses at greater length what the Twitter thing is and what it isn't. Because I don't know what this policy
that link will take you to our policy on social media and public record requests. That's my understanding. And when you get to that page, it delineates if you're a member of the news media.
Then maybe if you can send us a copy of that page as well, that would help.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
thank you very much.
To that point, you mentioned that several other officers have. See, I guess I'm having an issue here with having an official SFPD Twitter account at Officer Smith, Officer Henry, whatever it is. I don't. Anyway, I'm not going to get into whether they should or should not be doing that. That's your decision for you guys to monitor. I think that anyone that is broadcasting on behalf of the SFPD through Twitter or other media should have something like this attached, like you do on your page, saying that this is, the social media policy, public records request, basically having that disclaimer that you have at the front page of your Twitter account. They should also have it on theirs, channeling responses or responses for information, as Mr. Petrellis did, back to the correct custodian of records.
Or just giving a general overview that says this is what it is.
Because that way you're helping them find that record correctly, and you're, even though right now Twitter may not be part of this.
I believe everybody has a disclaimer on their
They just checked them. They did.
Okay, all right.
As I said earlier in my presentation, we don't want to miss or lose anyone's public record sunshine requests.
Yeah. Okay.
And we work really hard to make sure that we get them out on time.
Okay.
And maybe if you could send us a copy of those disclaimers and attempt to standardize those. I think that's what you're asking.
I think they'll all be standard.
Because
check.
Because in probably a few years' time, these will be appropriate channels of requesting information, more than likely. Add 5 more to that types of communication, probably. I mean,
we'll see how that develops and the code changes and so forth.
So just to protect you.
What I don't want to do is have to take away an avenue of putting out information from my PIOs, my public information officers.
I agree.
And if this gets too convoluted with receiving these cryptographic requests through 120 characters and these various channels, then I might have to just cut those off and have one streamlined.
Right. Member Wolf?
Don't want to do that.
I mean, in looking through the way that the section, that the Sunshine Ordinance is written, it doesn't have a catch-all of any incoming communication medium, although the SFPD is choosing to use Twitter as both a broadcast and receiving methodology. Certain agencies within the city may never look at their requests. Certain members of city governments may not even be aware of that notification thing because they're using an automated tool to broadcast out messages and not even be aware of their reception. I think that when we look at Twitter, we come to a certain conclusion, but if we continue this out to its conclusion and we start to think about Instagram, well, you can send messages through Instagram, but I didn't even know this until shortly ago when I discovered that I had all these Instagram messages that I had never looked at. And, I don't think that it is fair to put the onus on a department to be checking 10 to 12 incoming streams of messages when those may be used simply as broadcasting tools. You can scream at your TV when the SFPD runs a commercial, but they're not obligated to listen to your talking into the TV, because they hopefully can't, but we'll just move on from there. I think that it might make sense to update the existing code to incorporate Twitter or other social media streams to add faxes as a reception. But the law is written quite clearly, and I don't think there's a violation given the way that the law is written.
Thank you. we're going to take rebuttals at this point. You have up to 3 minutes. Respondent first to rebut anything or any other points you'd like to add.
I think the committee understands, if you will, the opinion of the police department. And you guys have all touched on the concerns that I have and that we have within the unit and within discussions with the legal division and our deputy city attorney. At the risk of beating a dead horse, Twitter is not email. We have a centralized process for submitting these requests to the custodian of records. You can do so orally, call me up and ask. In writing, and it states in writing by fax, postal delivery, or email. And again, we contend that Twitter is not email. Twitter accounts are not used 24/7. They have a limited number of characters, which causes people to have to use shorthand and abbreviations, which can potentially confuse the question or confuse the issue or the request. There is a process in place. It works very well. This is the first time I've ever been to Sunshine in the 4 to 5 years and working with the media relations unit. We don't want to come here. Happy to be here and talk to you guys, but it's not what we want to do. We don't want to have to be here and answer these questions. We want to just get that information out as quickly and as best as we can.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Petrellis, you have up to 3 minutes to rebut.
Hello, I'm looking at my request, and I notice here from December 6 on page 94, public info request, numeral 4, name of @SFPD cop behind that account. I think that's kind of simple. I don't think I'm asking for 180,000 characters. The name of the cop behind that account. They can't provide it. Okay. If I see a crime or I've seen a crime and I've got documentation, I guess I shouldn't tweet it to them. What, they only want to get certain kind of information? They ask for tips? What if you pass along a tip? They're not going to take it now? We have to, my role, I have to say my role is to continually expand ways of gaining access to public documents. I think that this argument the officer is making about they don't monitor it 24/7, well, what if someone tweets in a tip at 3 o'clock about a killer? Is no one really watching it? We're paying them. They have millions of dollars for communications. You know what? I'd like for a public information officer to be on call 24 hours a day to monitor all the methods of communication. They have to get with the modern age. Also, regarding this argument that if they start accepting requests, they have to appoint someone to make a response at 1 in the morning. Even if you send an email, you're not going to get a response at 1 in the morning. I'm not asking for a response at 1 in the morning. I am asking that simple requests that are in writing should be accepted by the police department using social media. As Andrzejczyk knows, this Thursday we're before the Office of Citizen Complaints regarding some other matters with them, and I have brought similar concerns about their social media policies, which are not in writing, before the police commission. So my expectation is that the Sunshine Task Force, the OCC, and the police commission have to kick the Public Information Office into developing written policies. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I made several requests. So I'm hoping Officer Andrzejczyk will follow up on that with a memo back to the task force. Probably not immediately because you need to do a little research and update the page and all of that. I note that Member Wolf had asked, and we have on our pending list, discussion of social media. So perhaps we will have that fuller discussion at some point. I would also ask Officer Andrzejczyk, do you go to the citywide PIO meetings that the mayor's office convenes? Or
I haven't been to one.
But one of your people go?
Typically.
Okay.
I'm not sure when they had the last one. I haven't seen an email come across for a while. But
they happen, they don't happen. If you could go, or whoever goes to the next one, if they could ask the group how other departments use their social media, and if they're I'm kind of wondering if the PD's policy is consistent with what others do, or if others do differently. And we may have a larger hearing, but if you can just get that little bit of information back to us, that would also help.
I'll see what I can do. Probably won't be till after Super Bowl. We're coming up.
Fair enough. Yeah, I get it. There's stuff going on.
Thank you.
Were my requests clear enough earlier?
I wanted to verify or
Sure.
confirm. You would like to see that each of the individual Twitter pages has that disclaimer, and you want to see what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you asked to see what this policy page is. When you click the policy link, you want to see what that says.
Mm-hmm.
There's a comment about the font, so I'll see what can be done. I'm pushing 50 and wear bifocals myself, so.
Can you read this?
That
Not easily.
Yeah, that might just be how the printout came out. I don't know that it's how the web page looks, but I'll see what we can do with the web page. I don't know much about programming and software and whatnot.
We have people for that.
Yeah.
And the content, to also look at conforming the content to current addresses.
It appeared that 3rd Street address was updated. Legal division still maintains an office at 850 Bryant, so I will double check to see. Correct. Yeah, court liaison and legal still has an office on the 5th floor.
But I'm not sure that's where they handle public records requests.
I know that Briseda is at 1245 3rd Street,
Right,
so I'll
so-
see if there's a quicker way, if we can put that address in there. Maybe it'll save them 2 days of hand-carrying the mail from 850 Bryant Street down to...
That would help expedite responses to public records requests.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Pilpel. Is there a motion on this?
Is the appropriate motion to recommend that the task force not find a violation?
Or not take a motion? Would that not effectuate
No,
the
I
same
think we
thing?
need to make a recommendation to the task force one way or the other.
Okay. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk? Okay. I make a motion that there is not a violation here.
You're making the motion?
I'm making the motion, yeah.
I'll second.
The motion is to refer this matter to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force with the recommendation that no violation has occurred.
Okay. Seeing there's no members of the public, there's no public comment on this. If you can take a roll call.
On that motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Pilpil.
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. The motion passes.
Mr. Clerk, can we move number 7 up on the agenda? Just want to make sure that...
Item number 7, public comment. Members of the public may address the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Are there any members of the public that would like to make public comment? No? Okay. Seeing none, public comment is closed. So back to item 5.
Item number 5, file number 15020, hearing, policies and procedures guide, how to respond to requests for public records. I believe that Member Pilpil has some handouts for the other members.
So
I'm going to make a motion to continue this because I'd like to actually read this, and I was hoping this would be part of the package before. And as I mentioned, I have a hard stop today, so I need to wrap this up. Now, I can let you guys discuss it if you like, and also handle items 6 and 8.
that's fine.
Or we can...
I think we're going to be pretty quick about that.
I'll second the motion to continue it.
Okay, if we're going to continue it, then we can either continue all items and adjourn the meeting, or...
That works. We can do that. This is basically...
Let me rephrase that motion. That I like to, Mr. Clerk, I like to continue the rest of the items on the agenda and take a roll call vote on that.
The motion is to continue items 5, 6, and 8 to the call of the chair.
And if I might, yes, please read this. It's a first pass. Most of it was like 1 o'clock this morning, but there's some good content in there. It needs some more work. And I have some updates to the minutes, but they really need another pass anyway, so I'm fine with all of that. So,
Is there any public comment regarding the motion to continue?
I'm only, it all sounds good. I'm confused what was supposed to happen on item 8 that we are continuing. That's the only point of inquiry I have.
There is no action item. It's just a discussion on...
maybe we only need to continue items 5 and 6 and take no action on item 8.
So I rephrased my motion for those items only.
Okay, the motion is to continue item 5 and 6 to the call on the chair.
Seeing no public comment on that motion, if we can have a roll call vote.
On that motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Pilpil.
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. The motion passes. Item number 8, announcements, comments, questions, future agenda items, and pending calendar.
More next time. I've got nothing.
Item 9.
I do not believe there are any announcements at this time. There being no further business, would the chair like to adjourn the meeting?
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.